Guys, the keynote presentation tonight is the forecast and the market update. I'm going to go through that with you guys. I will tell you, just so you know, this meeting, normally we talk about different marketing strategies, normally we talk about different purchase and sales strategies. This meeting is very specifically and only focused on the market update and the market forecast. So we're going to break down everything that's happening in Texas and kind of around the state, as well as specifically in Austin, and what some of the leading indicators are in terms of our business cycle and the forecasts that we get from several of the economists that work in this community and give us some direction on where the market's going. I will also give you at the bottom of every slide where I got the information from if you guys want to do further research and nerd out even more than what I've already nerded out for you guys. But you'll find this information very valuable. I always joke with the market updates that I do it for you. No, I do it for me. I do it for me because I also live, work, and invest here, and I want to make sure that I'm adjusting and changing my strategies as the market changes and as the forecast changes. This first slide that I've got up here for you shows the history of sales in the Austin area over the last 5 years. Really, if you look at it, it's just 1 year building on the other. If I were to include 2011 on here, that's where you would see the big jump. You're not seeing a big jump over the last couple of years, primarily because we don't have a huge inventory of homes to sell here now versus what we had back in 2011 as an example. If we had more of an inventory of homes to sell, then we would be very much increasing these numbers significantly in terms of year-over-year growth. Last month, and this is actually for the month of December, the January numbers have come out, but I want to stay focused on the year-end 2017 for this meeting. But last month we sold almost 2,700 units, 12.6% more than what we sold the same time last year. And year to date, we were 2.4% higher, 2017 versus 2016. Median price in the Austin area, $310,000, 7% more than what it was last year, and for year to date, 5.4% higher than last year. Average price, $376,000, 6% more than what it was last year, and year to date, 6%, also 6% more than what it was last year. Now, the numbers that I'm reporting on are the Austin and Round Rock numbers. These make up about 80% of the total sales in the Austin, greater Austin area. I will also break down the city of Austin because I know so many of us invest so close to where we are right now, just to give you an idea of what those numbers look like too. The number of new listings that we put on the market, just over 1,600, but as you can tell, we sold 2,600 the prior month, so we're basically eating up everything that we put on the market and more. Right now, we have only 5,200 listings in the Austin MLS, which is 9% more than what we had in 2016, but we're also selling more houses now than what we sold in 2016. And just to give you a little bit of perspective as well, in 2010, when we were selling about 18 to 19,000 units a year, we had almost 13,000 active listings in the MLS. Again, versus today, we only have 5,200 active listings in the MLS, and we're selling over 30,000 units every year. So we're, again, eating everything that comes on as quickly as it comes on in terms of selling these properties. Pending sales, which is our closest leading indicator of what closed sales will be when we close January. This is not a typo, 24% higher than what it was last year. It's a good indicator, but it's not always perfect. So sometimes it'll be up 24%, and then when we actually close the month, we'll see it up anywhere from 5 to 10%. So it's directional, but not always 100% accurate, but the closest thing we have to predicting. Days on market in the Austin Round Rock area right now, 71 days. This is actually, I just want to make sure you guys are clear on this. Days on market is not from time of list to time of sale. Days on market is time of list to time of going under contract. After that, it usually takes anywhere from 30 to 45 additional days to get to closing, simply because financing issues, title issues, etc., slow that down a little bit. Year to date in 2017, we were 53 days on market, and right now in the Austin Round Rock area, we have a 2.1 month supply of inventory. For those of you who are wondering what does that even mean, 2.1 months means if we stopped listing houses today, based on the current buyer demand that we've had over the last 12 months, in exactly 2.1 months, we would be completely out of an inventory of homes to sell. Historically, this number, our 40-year average, has been somewhere between 6 and 6.5 months of inventory. So right now, we have about a third of the amount of inventory on the market than what we typically have. That's one of the reasons why you're seeing the big jumps in both average price as well as median price. And we will continue to see that throughout 2018 as well. But that months of inventory number has been below the 3-month mark for the last 5 years. We have still not figured out how to add back more inventory. And this covers both single family as well as the condo market as well. We're just not building as much as we need to support all of the people that are coming here. City of Austin, breaking that out specifically, City of Austin numbers are much higher than City of Austin or Round Rock plus Austin. Round Rock kind of pulls down the curve in terms of bringing the average and median prices down. But you can see for the median price, City of Austin, $359,000, 3% higher than last year. But the average price in the City of Austin, almost $450,000, 4% higher than what we were at last year. Days on market even tighter for the City of Austin, only 54 days. And pending listings, again, our closest leading indicator to what sales will be next month, up 12%. And I mentioned that in the Austin Round Rock area, months of inventory was 2.1. And the City of Austin area only, months of inventory is 1.5. Further supporting some big gains that we saw in 2017 for the City of Austin in terms of average and median price that we'll also see in 2018 as well. Breaking out some of the drivers for these big increases that we're seeing. In general, the Texas economy is making jobs like crazy. That translates into adding over 330,000 jobs between 2016 and 2017. An average annual growth rate of 2.7% versus the greater United States at 1.4%. So the greater USA is the one who's kind of pulling down the curve here. And if it weren't for Texas, that 1.4% would probably be in the less than 1%. So Texas does contribute a lot to the overall economy. In terms of unemployment, right now we're seeing an unemployment rate of 3.8%, which is lower than what we were the same time last year at 4.8%, and again, even better than the nation's unemployment rate of 4.1%. One of the big things that is adding to, again, our increase in total number of sales and our increase in our average price is the amount of in-migration that we have in Texas. And if you guys are wondering where all of these people are, I'll tell you that right now at 8:20 at night, they're all waiting for you on Mopac, I-35, 183. They just took their car and they put it in park and they're just waiting for you. So if you're wondering where all these people are going, yeah, they're sitting in traffic and holding up traffic all around the city, and in fact, even all around the state. In Texas, between 2016 and 2017, we added about 1,100 people every single day, which is, it's mind-blowing. And what's really kind of gets me about this is that express lane that they added on Mopac. That would have been great like 20 years ago, that one little dinky lane. But it's really not active planning for what we're growing into in Austin right now. Austin specifically added over 58,000 new people. Right now we're the 31st largest metropolitan area in the country. And you can see where Houston and Dallas are on here as well. Dallas added 143,000, Houston added 125,000. San Antonio, I don't have it on this chart, but San Antonio, I think the number was around 40,000 new people that they added. So we're adding more than San Antonio, and San Antonio is a bigger MSA than Austin is, but we're collecting more of the people who are moving here. This is a chart of the state of Texas. The state of Texas has 254 total counties in it. 96 of those counties lost population. Most of that lost population went to the smaller cities, losing population to the larger cities in Texas. So that's why you see the growth specifically here in the Dallas and Fort Worth area. the growth in the Houston area, the growth in the Austin area, so this is Travis and Williamson County, as well as the growth in Bexar County. And those dark blue numbers added on average between 100 and 500,000 between 2010 and 2016, which is duplicative of what happened in 2017 as well. Building permits, which is our biggest driver of inventory and one of our biggest drivers of where our price increases are going to be, and one of the biggest drivers of where our market is going to be. Builders are usually overbuilding in a market like this, and we're actually surprised that they have not overbuilt us yet, just because we have so much demand there and because we have not built at the same level we've built in prior market cycles. This chart goes back to 1990, so you can see the growth leading up to the credit boom and the credit bust. So we were building over 165,000 units in the 2006 timeframe. Right now, we're only building about 125 to 130, so we're still not building as many units today as we were in the last market cycle, yet we're selling significantly more houses today than what we sold in the last market cycle. And that's one of the reasons why right now we're sitting at about 2.1 months supply of inventory, whereas our prior inventory numbers were somewhere between 6 and 6.5 months. And whereas our prior sales numbers, and I'll show you what some of the average prices look like back in 2011 versus what the average and median prices look like today in 2017, just to give you an idea of how that's affecting us, because it's a big effect. I know some of you guys are here because you have a greater interest in commercial and multifamily. So we also have the charts to show you what the building permits look like in multifamily as well. Also going back to 1990, you can see the different booms and busts that we've had in the Texas area, the credit boom and then the credit bust. We didn't build as many multifamily in 2009, for example, as it had been all the way since 1993 that we had built so few multifamily units, again, because of the air was basically taken out of the entire real estate market. However, unlike the single-family market, where we're still not building today as many houses as we built in the last market cycle, in the multifamily market, we are building as many units today as what we were building before. If you do a crane count in downtown Austin, you'll be able to basically verify that, right? Now, some might say that we're overbuilding in the multifamily market, and my guess is that at some point we are, but right now, because of the amount of people that are moving here, we still need every single unit that they're putting on the ground plus some. So, and usually I say when it comes to multifamily and specifically condos, we usually call that the canary in the coal mine. The condo market is the last market to go up, or excuse me, the last asset class to go up when the market goes up, but the first asset class to go down when the market goes down. So that's one of the ones that we watch very closely is in terms of being a very strong market indicator to where we're going. Now you can see that they have throttled a little bit or pressed the brakes a little bit on some of the multifamily that they're putting on in Texas, and we'll show you the chart that's specifically for Austin too in the next couple of slides, just to give you an idea. Dr. James P. Gaines, he is the chief economist at the Texas A&M Real Estate Center. They have a group of really sharp, really incredible economists that work there, and that really says a lot for coming from me, because I'm a Longhorn, but they've got some incredibly sharp people there that do forecasts all over Texas, and they have a real estate center there, and they have a PhD program for people who are studying economics and specifically with regard to real estate. But this was his forecast for 2018. And he's very connected, and their entire team is very connected to the market and everything that's going on, specifically in the Texas area and even beyond as they compare to other markets. But their forecast for 2018 is that we will see some type of an increase we'll see an increase in interest rates. And I've been saying for years, the only place that interest rates can really go is up, right? We're practically at the bottom. We have been lower, but still we're practically at the bottom. Now, they just changed, the chairman of the Federal Reserve Gay Yellen just retired or is no longer the chairman, and now Powell's the chairman. So as they transition, they've already had a Fed meeting this year where they did not increase interest rates, and some of the volatility in the stock market is actually going to, I think, help us from an interest rate standpoint, because as the economy starts to feel shaky or feel unstable, that's not going to usually be a time for them to be raising interest rates. The other thing that we benefit from here in Texas is the rest of the general economy is doing okay. Texas is doing great. But when they set the economic policy and when they specifically set the interest rates, it is a national thing as opposed to a local thing or a Texas thing. So we're benefiting here in Texas from the fact that the rest of the nation's economy is doing okay, and they want to hold interest rates down. But if they were setting interest rates just based on what Texas was doing, then trust me, we would have a much higher interest rate than what we do right now. So it's kind of a good position for us to be in. We're looking at high formations in terms of household formations at 1.25 million. We're seeing some of the millennial growth start to come in. We are seeing, however, a lot of the millennial growth being, even though it's coming in, it's not coming in at the same level that prior generations have come in at, because a lot of the millennials are saddled with so much student debt. They're already basically walking around with a home mortgage payment, but instead of being payment on a home, it's actually the payment on the education that they got. So that's constraining us a little bit. And it's also one of the big drivers for why we're seeing so much multifamily, because a lot of these folks are moving into apartments or condos because they don't have the financial capability to move into a home. So that's one of the reasons why we're seeing that demographic shift as well. They do predict that sales volume will grow, but it's not going to be growing at the same rate that it has in prior years. We'll also see some increased activity for some of those first-time buyers, some of those millennial buyers, but not at the same rate that we've seen them for other generations, as an example. Prices will be pushed up. Guys, we're going to have price increases for a long time, just simply because we don't have an inventory of homes for sale. It's basic law of economics. When you have a very low supply and a very high demand, 1,100 in migration every single day, you are going to see those prices go up. This is general for the Texas area at 4.5%. We will see the Austin area, specifically in the Austin Round Rock area, go up even more than this. Rental markets, they predict that will be loosening. We're seeing some lower vacancies, but we're also adding more inventory. As you guys saw, the building permits specifically for multifamily as well. Home construction, man, just when we need it the most, people are not building as many homes as they would have in prior market cycles. There are a couple reasons for this. There are a couple drivers for this. We think here in Austin we are insulated from events like Hurricane Harvey. The truth is that we are not. The truth is that as a result of Hurricane Harvey, construction costs have gone up, both from a labor standpoint as well as from a material standpoint. And then, of course, if you look at, and I didn't put this in the presentation tonight, but if you look at the rate of growth in terms of the price per acre in land, the price per acre in land growth is actually at a much steeper curve than the price for average and median price in single-family homes. So it's a little bit more speculative, and people are really trying to cash in on it, so it's increasing the cost of the average home. About 20 to 30 miles outside of Austin, back when I started investing, you could see houses, starter houses that were anywhere from 120 to 150,000. Today, you can't get a starter house for under 200,000. Again, not just because of the cost of labor and the cost of materials, but also because of the cost of land has gone up as well. One of the big things that people talk about lately is affordability. So we have seen a major affordability shift in Texas in general, and very specifically in Austin, and I'll go over what that has looked like over the last several years. And what they're basically saying is that the values of the houses, the appreciation in the houses, is going up at a faster rate than our incomes are going up. So they're worried that Texas is no longer going to be as affordable as it is but the truth is that Texas is still more affordable than the greater United States on a whole. We have gone up substantially over the last 5 years and have gone up at a greater pace than the greater United States, but we're still very affordable considering the rest of the market. Austin obviously is the least affordable large market of Dallas, Houston, Austin, and San Antonio, but that's pretty much always been the case. This is the business cycle index for the Austin area, so it shows where we are in terms of what we think the predictive growth is and where the growth has been. This is annualized back to 2007. So for example, you can see in 2007, at the top of our last market cycle, we were growing at a rate of 10%. Going into 2008 and 2009, the bottom of our real estate market cycle, for example, we were growing at negative 4% a year. This 6% is our average long-term growth rate. You can see that we popped out of it. And this 2011 was actually the bottom of our real estate market cycle. So from 2011, roughly summer of 2011 onward, we were pulling out of the depths of our real estate bottom. And you can see that it was further driven over the last several years by the growth that's been created in the Austin area, specifically in terms of jobs. We dipped a little bit under the growth curve in 2016, but we came right back out of it as we ended 2017. Now, they say that if you look at the press releases from 2014, 2015, 2016, there were a lot of companies that were moving here and expanding here. If you look at the same announcements that we've had for 2017 and 2018, we don't have as many announcements on expansions and growth. It doesn't mean that we're not seeing expansions and growth. It doesn't mean that we're not seeing increased job creation, but we're not seeing it at the same rate that we saw, for example, in 2014, 2015, and at least the first half of 2016 is evidenced here. The business cycle as compared to the other large cities around Texas, the red line is Austin, so Austin is outperforming as indexed to 2000, where we all started at 2007. Austin's performing the best. This gray line here is Houston. You can see in 2014 it got to its height and it started to trail off. 2014, that's when price per barrel was $110 a barrel. In 2016, price per barrel was around $35 a barrel. Right now, we're at about $65 a barrel. The irony is, going into Hurricane Harvey, we were about $55 a barrel. Hurricane Harvey actually helped the oil industry, and now oil is trading at about $65 a barrel, which is very interesting, but still kind of bouncing around the bottom here. The orange and yellow, San Antonio and Dallas, and then Fort Worth is doing strong, but not as strong, for example, as the Dallas area is. Following the recession, the 5 major metro areas began expanding again between October of 2009 and January 2010. At the end of 2009, Austin index has grown at 83%, while Dallas, San Antonio, Houston, Fort Worth have grown in the 40s and 30s. So we've seen much greater growth, again, as indexed back to 2007. Unemployment rate, the green line is Austin, so the lowest unemployment line that we have here. We're outperforming Texas, and then we're also outperforming the greater United States. You hear people say all the time, yeah, I just moved, I met somebody recently, and I just moved here, I didn't have a job, but I knew I was going to be able to get one. It's like, really? So there are a lot of people who are kind of coming to Austin on a wing and a prayer, and it's working out because we have that job growth, that job creation. And just to give you guys some perspective, the government considers full employment an unemployment rate of 6 to 6.5%. So right now in Austin specifically, we have an unemployment rate in the 2 to 3% range. So we're running even better, or twice as good as what, pardon me, the government would consider full employment. Average earnings. So you can see specifically average earnings for Austin is $28 an hour. versus the United States at $26 an hour versus the rest of Texas at $25.50 an hour. So we are outperforming the greater United States in terms of those hourly rates here in the Austin area, and even more significantly outperforming the state of Texas as well. So that also supports the fact that we have a higher priced property here than we do in some of the other places around Texas. This is the job growth chart. You can see again we've had some dips here. Specifically, we had the dot-com boom, and then we had the dot-com bust, which was not very hard of a bust unless you were one of the ones who was walked out of Dell at the rate of 100 plus people a day. It felt a little different. It felt a little different if you were living in the Round Rock or Hutto area, where the layoffs at Dell basically crashed that market for a period of about 3 to 4 years. But the rest of Austin, for example, didn't feel it. Again, you can see the boom as we went into the credit cycle, a short bust, and then we really never stopped creating jobs here in the Austin area. The forecast for population growth, you can see going back to 1960, we had a population of 300,000 versus 2010 at 1.7 million. Versus where we are today, I think that number is about 2.2 million, and this is the forecast for what it's going to look like over the next 30 years. So the sooner that they double deck MOPAC and triple deck I-35, I think we'll all be able to get around in less than an hour here in Austin. But that's what it's going to be looking like for the next several years. It's a very similar chart for the other large cities in the Texas area as well, in terms of the amount of growth that we're forecasted to have. Looking at the average sales price as well as the number of home sales, you can see, again, this graph goes back to 1990, so you can see the average price has pretty much been on a steady upward trend. We had a couple of flat times again after the dot-com boom and bust, and some flat times again after the credit boom and bust. The biggest thing I want you to notice here is the fact that when we were in the last market cycle, we didn't really have a sales price bubble, but we did have a volume bubble. So you can see where we were selling about 30,000 units back in 2006. We did not hit that 30,000 number again until 2013, and we barely were able to get over it until about 2015. So you can see, again, it was more volume related than price related, because when you look at how the sales price changed, it was basically flat to barely down for about 2 years before we started to roll back out of it. But you can see where the average price, for example, in 2012, getting close to about 270,000 versus today, closer, I think that looks like, about 350. And I'll show you some more graphs to kind of clarify some of these as well. This is the one, this chart is the one that is probably the most troubling, specifically for city and state administrators when it comes to affordability, because this tells kind of a scary story when it comes to affordability. So going back to 2011, the number or the percentage of homes that sold under 250,000, so the sum of all of these sales back in 2011 said that almost 67% of the homes that we sold in the Austin area were under 250,000, and about 33.5% were over that 250,000 limit. Today, in 2017, it went from about 66.5% to only 35% of the homes in the Austin area have sold for 250,000 or less, whereas now 65% of the homes are selling for above 250,000. That is a pretty big change. We basically saw prices go anywhere from 50 to 100,000 just kind of on average just over the last 6 years. So that's why they're saying it's, we're worried about it being unaffordable. One of the things that has allowed this growth in terms of pricing to occur, a couple of things. Number one, in-migration. In-migration from other states where people come here and say, man, I can get all of this for this little price. It's like the 2-for-1 sale here in Austin for a lot of people who come here from, for example, the East and West Coast, right? The other thing, again, is the amount of jobs that we're creating and the types of jobs that we're creating. And the other thing that has allowed, or two more things that has allowed us to see this growth is the fact that we have such little inventory of homes for sale. So we're going to see prices go up when there's no inventory of homes for sale, but there are jobs. And then finally, what we saw from this 2011 to 2017 period is what kind of interest rates did we see? Really low interest rates. If you go back to the last market cycle, you saw interest rates, for example, in 2007, 2008, in the 7 to 8% range, versus now they're 4% or below. Does that, so when you are buying a house, you want to know what the house costs, but you really want to know what's my monthly payment going to be? And that's based on the interest rate. So you can afford a $300,000 house if you can afford a $300,000 house at a 7% interest rate, then you can easily afford a $400,000 house at a 4% interest rate. I don't know, I'm not doing the math right now, but it's basically about the same monthly payment. So that has also kind of helped grease the skids of allowing these prices to go up. Now, as the Fed meets regularly and looks at interest rates regularly, they are probably, I'm sure they're going in eyes wide open, knowing that as we change interest rates, increase interest rates, the ability to see the same level of growth diminishes. Yeah. I know this is an eye chart. I'll tell you the things I want to point out here, though. So this is the median sales price for existing single-family homes, broken out by these different metropolitan areas. This kind of yellowish line right here, so the 2017 median through Q3 of 2017, about $300,000. But the median price, or excuse me, the median income here in the Austin area, about $71,000. In Houston, for example, median income $62,000, but their median price $234,000. When people say Austin is unaffordable, one of the things that I wanted to look at specifically is, well, let's look at what San Francisco is. San Francisco has a median sales price of $900,000, but they only make $96,000 a year. So us at $300,000, you would think that they would have to make 3x what we make in order to make that sales price happen. So somehow San Francisco has figured out this affordability problem, and guess what? Prices continue to go up. I think Austin can also figure that out. Whenever the city administrators or the state administrators say, we're from the government and we're here to help. Yes, be careful. The lucky thing that we have here in Texas is our state legislature only gets together every other year. So we only have an opportunity to screw stuff up every other year, which is really kind of awesome, in fact. And they did mess some stuff up when it comes to the things that we do as real estate investors as well. But the same is true for example, the San Jose area. Their median price, just over 1.1 million. They're not, so almost 4x what we pay here in Austin, but they're only making on average another $30,000 a year. So I think we're going to be okay for a while. We just have to convince the administrators that that's actually the case. We're going to break down, so we looked at single-family and multifamily building permits for the greater state of Texas. Now we're going to look at it in Austin because it does vary by the metropolitan area. And this chart goes back to 1980, so you can see the boom and bust we had in the 80s with the savings and loan crisis. You can see the run-up to the dot-com boom and the dot-com bust. You can see the credit boom and the credit bust. And you can see, again, here in the Austin area, we are still not building as many single-family houses as what we built in that last large market cycle, yet we are selling more homes today than what we sold in this last market cycle. This is contributing to that low months of inventory being around 2 months of inventory, whereas our average is closer to 6 to 6.5 months of inventory. The same is not true for multifamily. So with multifamily, we're building more in this market cycle than what we built in that last market cycle in 2006, 2007. But preferences and demographics have changed as well, as we've seen again some of the millennials come into the market and not looking so much, at least today, for single-family homes as much as looking for multifamily apartments, that sort of stuff. This chart goes back to 1980, so you can see the boom and bust that we had in the 80s. If you're wondering, why does every apartment complex in Austin look like it was built in 1984? It's because it was. Yeah, so I mean, as evidenced here, right? And you can see it's went down to nothing in the 90s and then kind of started picking up throughout, well, since then. Pardon me. Cap rates, this is us, and again, I know this is an eye chart, there's a lot of data here. This second line here is a cap rate for Austin, for example. For stabilized Class A properties, you're looking at a cap rate anywhere from 4.2% to 4.75%. That means you're paying a lot more for that property, considering the rents that are available. When you're buying, you really want that cap rate to be high. That means you're getting a better deal. Austin has always had a lower cap rate than the three other major metropolitan areas, and we'll continue to have that. Right now, they're very close. Dallas and Houston both at 4.5 to 5% cap rates, versus Austin again at 4.2 to 4.75% cap rates. But the cap rates, for example, in 2010, you would see Austin usually somewhere between a cap rate between 6 to 8%, and you would see Dallas and Houston, for example, cap rate 8 to 12%, and San Antonio 10 to up to even 14%. All of that has been pulled down because of the demand that we've seen in multifamily. And by demand in multifamily, I'm not just talking about, oh, we have a bunch of investors that want to get into multifamily. What I'm talking about is we have very, 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 very high occupancy, right? So in the 80s, when we overbuilt, for example, our occupancy went really, really low. So those properties were not throwing off as much income, and they sold for much less than now they're selling, obviously, today. When you have an occupancy rate in the high 90s, that's going to continue to promote more building, for example, of multifamily, and that's one of the things that we've been seeing, again, not just in the Austin area, but also throughout Texas. The Class B stabilize, again, and this is a lot of the stuff that we look for and we invest in, 4.75 to 5.25%. But again, this is half of the cap rate of what it was just 7 years ago. And again, that's why you're seeing so many investors getting in to build new units. The issue that we're seeing with a lot of the new units that are being built, however, is this. Every single new unit that's being built, what's the adjective used to describe it?
Luxury.
Luxury. Does luxury even mean anything to anyone anymore? I mean, there's nothing that's being built right now that doesn't have the adjective luxury in front of it. So everything that we're building is like Class A and AA, right? I mean, that's all there is. So there is still going to be a lot of opportunity for the Class B stuff. As even the current Class A stuff ages, as they bring on some of the newer properties that we're building. But that is something that's going to have an effect on those of us who are investing in multifamily and create a lot of opportunities for us as well. The forecast for the rest of 2018, we should see an increase in sales here in the Austin area of somewhere between 3 and 5%. What I have to tell you is this. If we were to add more inventory of homes for sale, we would see this in the 5 to 8% range. So we still have a lot of buyer demand that we're not fulfilling right now. And guys, just really quickly, because Graham's in the back, is there anyone in here who is specifically and or only interested in commercial or multifamily that did not already buy membership? What are you thinking? So again, you just got here. So I was going to say,
I'm here because you were talking about commercial.
Okay, well, good. So we have Graham in the back. Graham's going to wave his hand if you want to look at Graham. Yes, hey, Graham. So if you want to talk to him about some additional training that we have for commercial and multifamily, Graham's the guy that you're going to want to talk to. I will say, just to let you know, Graham has like 4 kids at home. So Graham is giving me the signal like, I've got to get home and play daddy. So if you wouldn't mind, if you're interested in joining the association and getting more training on commercial multifamily, stepping out and seeing Graham before you leave tonight, yeah? So the increase in price is going to be at least in the 5 to 7% range. Specifically in the city of Austin, it will be higher just because we have fewer properties. Demand for those properties is already really high. And the forecast from Mark Sprague, who's the State Director of Information for Capital Independence Title, one of the larger title companies here in the Austin area, 2018 is going to be a lot like 2017. It's going to be slower, but still very strong, meaning our growth rate, we're still growing, but the growth is kind of flattening out versus where it has been in prior years. Nothing to, sneeze at, nothing to look down on. It's still good, but we just don't have some of the same drivers now in 2018 that we had, for example, that really boosted and lifted our market between roughly 2012 and 2016, but it's still, again, very strong. We would see these numbers a lot higher if we had more of an inventory of these houses for sale. Multiple economic factors to watch out for going into the next year. Slowing job growth in the Central Texas area. We are seeing growth. We're still adding, on average, at least 30,000+ new jobs every single year, but we're not growing it at the same rate, at the same pace that we had previously. And then the impact of Hurricane Harvey on building materials as well as labor. The overhaul of the U.S. tax plan. I think I've got a slide in here that addresses how that affects us as real estate investors specifically. And of course, as everyone states in the Austin area, affordability is a huge problem. People have been saying that we're unaffordable for years, and every year our prices go up. It is displacing a lot of people who used to live in town, pushing them in further into the suburbs. But I think that's kind of the nature of progress in a city like what we live in. A lot of people ask me, hey, these slides were like so awesome and informational. Can I get a copy of those? And my answer to you is yes. You may get a copy of all of these slides that I presented tonight and all the backup material from all of these great economic sources that are greater than me. I will ask that you lead with your heart, and if you make a donation to Habitat for Humanity in the amount of $100, and this is a tax write-off for you guys, not for me, but if you make a donation to Austin Habitat for Humanity, which is my cause here in the Austin area, I've kind of aligned them with providing housing and solving this affordability problem. But I'd be happy to give you a copy of my slide deck as well as the backup material. You can send just a receipt to info@RIA-Austin, or just respond to the email that we sent you just to confirm you guys are coming here, and I will happily send you all of this. Some of the source data, if you don't want to pay $100 to Habitat for Humanity, you can go out and get it yourself. Austin Board of Realtors, Austin Title, Texas A&M Real Estate Center, the Dallas Fed, Austin Chamber of Commerce, Home Builders Association, and CBRE, which is the largest commercial brokerage in the United States. Let's see. Interest rates. Everyone always says, well, what about interest rates? If interest rates go up, is that going to ruin the housing market? This is a chart going back to 1972. This magenta line, I guess that's what this color is median home prices. The purple line is interest rates. As you can see, as interest rates go up and up and up and up, houses prices go up. As you can see, as interest rates go down and up and down and up and down, housing prices go up. As you can see, as interest rates go up and down and up and down, housing prices go. There is a short-term effect of interest rates on housing prices, but there is not a long-term effect of interest rates on housing prices. Yeah? Let's see if I have anything. U.S. legislative reform. Great news, capital gains tax unchanged, so the highest is somewhere between 15 and 20% depending on your income bracket. This is where I get to say, I'm not an attorney, CPA, or financial planner, okay? You guys go and talk to your personal attorney, CPA, and financial planner, see how this applies to you. Homestead exemption. This is the rule that says you can take the gains from the sale of your primary residence up to $250,000 tax-free for an individual, up to $500,000 tax-free for a couple, as long as you lived in that property and was your homestead for the last 2 years, and you haven't sold another homestead in the last 2 years. The maximum tax rate drops from 39.6% to 37%. The tax brackets also change, so to hit that highest tax bracket, the amount of income you had to earn also goes up. Alternative minimum tax exemption amounts increase. The standard deductions that you can take on your tax returns doubled to $24,000. This one's going to be kind of an interesting one. This is going to create a lot of movement around the country. The SALT tax, state and local taxes. Originally I think this number was unlimited. So for example, if you had a property tax bill of $60,000 on your homestead, you could write that $60,000 off as expenses to own your house. Now they have limited that amount to $10,000. What do you think that is going to result in here in Texas?
More people from California.
More people from everywhere. Yes, but yeah, no, more people from California, New York, Florida, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Oops. So that is a big deal. Interest on home equity lines of credit no longer deductible. There's a lot of asterisks behind this, so be sure to, if you have one already in place, you may be able to continue to deduct it. Again, this is one you want to check with your accountant and CPA on. The estate and generational giving tax doubled to $11.2 million, and then the individual healthcare mandate requirement to have health insurance has also been repealed. So those are some of the big things, and the note to that for us as real estate investors is, along with the health insurance mandate, they also instituted a 3.8% tax for capital gains. So if you had an income above roughly $170,000 and you sold a property and got that you owned for 1 year and got that long-term capital gain, in addition to paying, for example, a 20% capital gains tax rate, you're also paying a 3.8% fair healthcare tax as well. It's undetermined at this point, as far as my accountant has told me, whether or not that also got repealed as the healthcare mandate got repealed. So it's something that they're still figuring out. Apparently the way that they did this was just kind of in the middle of the night with a couple of red lines, just redlining stuff, trying to push some things through. So I think there's still a lot to be discovered and figured out. But as I said earlier, I think I talked about this little infographic: adapt, mutate, migrate, or die. Knowledge is key in being successful in any industry, but especially as a real estate investor. And I want to just thank you guys for coming out tonight, and hope you decide to join our Real Estate Investor Association, and look forward to seeing you at our next meeting, which is on the first Tuesday of March. So thank you guys all so much for coming out.